Have you ever been scrolling through your photos or maybe your social media feed, and you just kind of stop and wonder how it seems, well, endless? I mean, how can your phone handle literally thousands of items so effortlessly without ever even stuttering? Well, turns out there's a brilliantly simple secret behind that super smooth experience. Right, let's just dive right into that, because this is the big question for today. How in the world can an app with a potentially massive amount of data, we're talking 10,000 photos, easy, feel so fast and so responsible on a device that you can just hold in your hand? Well, the answer is a really clever bit of engineering that's just fundamental to how modern apps are built. You know, to really appreciate the solution, we first have to understand the problem. And developers, they call it the billion row problem. And trust me, it's a true recipe for disaster if you don't handle it the right way. So let's just put a number on it to make it real. Imagine your favorite app needs to show 10,000 rows of content. That could be anything, photos, emails, contacts, you name it. That's a lot of individual pieces of information. Okay, so the most obvious way to do this, the kind of brute force way, would be for the app to create a unique visual element in your phone's memory for every single one of those 10,000 rows. Yeah, every single one loaded up and ready to go whether you can see it on the screen or not. As you can probably guess, that would be an absolute catastrophe. And this slide just lays it all out perfectly. On the left, you see what happens with that old dumb way. Your phone's memory would just get completely crushed, the scrolling would be choppy and laggy, just awful, and your battery would drain in no time. But then you look on the right, with the smart way, and you get the exact opposite. A tiny memory footprint, that buttery smooth scrolling we all expect, and an app that's incredibly power efficient. It's a night and day difference. So what is this elegant, super smart solution? It's iOS's little recycling secret. So let's introduce the core concept behind all this magic. It's called cell reuse. At its heart, cell reuse is basically just a powerful recycling system. It takes a very small number of existing on-screen cells, the little rows you see, and just reuses them over and over to display a huge amount of data as you scroll. The key word here is recycling. The system is smart enough to avoid the super expensive work of creating and destroying things constantly. Now, this is where it gets kind of wild. Check out the difference in scale here. Instead of making 10,000 cells for our 10,000 photos, iOS just creates the few that actually fit on the screen at any given moment. We're talking maybe 10 or 12, plus a couple more just off-screen as a little buffer. That's it. We go from 10,000 down to about a dozen. It's an incredible optimization. So how does this recycling actually happen? It's not really magic, but it is a surprisingly simple and elegant process. So let's break it down step by step. Okay, so here's the entire life cycle of a single cell. First, as you scroll up, a cell at the top disappears off the screen. Step 2, instead of getting destroyed, it gets put into what's called a reuse queue. Just think of it like a little waiting room for cells. Step 3, as you keep scrolling, a new row of data needs to pop in at the bottom. So what does iOS do? Step 4, it just checks that waiting room and pulls out one of those old, unused cells. And finally, step 5, it quickly swaps out the old content for the new stuff and presents it on screen. This whole cycle repeats hundreds of times a minute, completely invisible to you. So here's the most important thing to get. That physical chunk of memory that represents a cell, it's like a chameleon. The very same cell instance that showed you a photo of your dog a second ago might scroll off, get recycled, and then pop back on screen a moment later showing you a completely different photo from way down your list. Same cell, different content. Now, this is way more than just a clever programming trick. It has 3 huge real-world benefits for every single one of us using a phone. This is what we call the performance triple win, and honestly, it's the reason your apps feel so good to use. Let's break down these awesome benefits. First up, memory efficiency. Because you're only ever juggling about a dozen cells, memory usage stays incredibly low, no matter if you have 1,000 photos or 1,000,000. Second, smooth scrolling. The biggest thing that causes lag is creating new stuff on the fly. By avoiding that completely, you get that perfectly fluid experience. And third, better battery life. The processor just has to do way less work, which means your app is more power efficient and your battery lasts longer. It really is a win-win-win. When you add it all up, you can see that cell reuse is truly the invisible backbone of modern app performance. It's the unsung hero that makes the apps you use every single day even possible. And this quote from our source material just says it all. If cell reuse didn't exist, large lists would simply not be practical on mobile devices. Just think about that for a second. Your social feeds, your contacts app, your entire photo library, the absolute core experiences of your phone, they just wouldn't be possible in the way we know them without this one single elegant idea.
So there you have it, the secret to perfectly smooth scrolling. It's an amazing example of doing way, way more with less, which leaves me with one final question for you to think about. What other invisible engineering feats are working right now, behind the scenes, to make the technology you use every single day not just possible but actually a pleasure to use?